is sick after 6. Feels like I'm paying to play for the right to exist, with a chance to take a chance away from some other kid who got his BA from UGA and the idea he's owed some kind of place in the race to become CFO. I tell him get back on the ladder, got a long way to go. Time ain't on your side, they lied. The Rolling Stones spread the word to the morning birds. The stores are open late. If you wanna live the American dream, you gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake. My alma mater's on the line, another call with the man who's raising funds for another one of the buildings they planned. And he's asking me for money, but I ain't got none in hand. You'd be shocked at the cost of being who I am. But give me 7 more years, they'll put my name on a building. At least a sign on the left field line of the ball field. God willing, I will stay in the game. Play the extra innings, climb the bottom of the range to the top of the billing. When they need a heavy hitter, I'll be ready to play. If you wanna live the American dream, you gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake. All the top brass names, leaving early, be the rush on the 3:30 trains. And I'll join them eventually, but it won't be today. To make that kind of hazy, gotta have your dues paid. So I stay real late with the help of my supply. It's never cheap, but I need it to keep me alive. You may not call it medicine, but I still call it mine. You'd be shocked at the cost of what it goes for outside. But when you live like a wire, no hour is too late. And if you wanna live the American dream, you gotta stay awake. And I will sleep when I'm dead broke, but first I'm getting paid. And if you wanna live the American dream, if you wanna live the American dream, if you wanna live the American dream, you gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake.
Welcome to Jrodconcerts, the podcast live, and this is the American Static Volume 2 release special with Andrew Leahey of Andrew Leahey and the Holmes.
Hey, man.
Man, what a song.
Thank you, dude.
And we'll get to it because it's a great message. But man, I mean, first of all, I have to tell you what you've accomplished here with these 2 albums, Andy, is something just so special. And I think that you should be like so proud of it. I mean, Airwaves and all your stuff up to this point has been phenomenal. But what a creative project, man, that you finished here. It is creatively, wow, what a high point for you.
Thank you very much for saying so. I'm glad it's not overkill. 18 tracks, a 2-album project could be overkill. So I'm glad this wasn't.
No, you spaced it well. And actually, before we get to the songs and stay awake, let me ask you a little bit about the beginning of American Static. Because
sure.
I was listening the other day to OK Computer by Radiohead, and it reminded me of this and how it has like a beginning. Like, how did this project start? Because this is more than an album. This is more than singles. This is an idea. This is like, it comes from your gut. Where did it come from, man?
It came from my intention of like us remaining active as a band while I was out with Elizabeth Cook. So we were talking before we began rolling. I play with Elizabeth Cook, the outlaw country queen, Elizabeth Cook. And so we recorded an album with her called Aftermath. It was going to come out, and this was all like right before COVID happened.
Right.
So I wanted to make myself available to her to be able to go on the road and play as much as Elizabeth wanted. It's kind of the other half of what I do with my career. It's like the yin, like to the Andrew Leahey and the Homestead yang.
Yang, right.
So my plan at the time was, I'm just going to go into the studio when I can and record a bunch of songs and release them one by one every month or whatnot, and kind of keep Andrew Leahey and the Homestead active while I'm out with Elizabeth. Rather than, trying to do what you normally do with a new album where you spend all the time in the studio, like you make the album, you have a big release, you go on tour with your band. And then COVID happened. So I wasn't going to go out with Elizabeth for a while, and I kept writing my own songs. Yeah. And then, COVID got to a place where it was okay for the band to get together, and we recorded a couple songs on our own, and we worked with our producer again when vaccines were a thing. And what had begun as just a couple of one-off songs, quickly became an album, and then that quickly became 2 albums.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's crazy. That it's just one song became 3, became 2 albums, right?
Well, and luckily, not luckily, but, the hardcore COVID era was like a year and a half, and so we had a lot of time, so we just kept going back in the studio, and we had all those live streams that we were doing also, because we're a band that's used to being on the road, so, we had a crowd that would watch our live streams, and we had every reason to come up with new material. If we were going to have a weekly show, we wanted to have an audience that kept coming back. We just, we couldn't keep playing Airwaves songs every week.
Well, there's a comfort level in this double album, to you, Andrew, like in every part creatively here that, Skyline and Airwaves, I love those albums. But this part, it just seems like the whole thing, you're like in your element, like of sonically, technically, engineering wise. And I'm wondering, hearing the story of the albums, if it was like a once in a lifetime kind of like opening because of the pandemic, in the sense that it seemed like you picked the people who you felt good with. It seems like, where did you record? Did you record in a studio here?
Yeah, with my buddy John Estes at his home studio.
Okay,
yeah.
So you felt good at his studio.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you felt at home. It was a place where you felt creatively like. So where I'm going with this is, it seems like you were just like at ease with the people you trusted, with like the scene, the scenic ambience that you trusted.
Yeah.
Right? Like, would that be accurate to say?
I think it's a couple of things. I think on my other albums, I always had like a different version of the band. I've had a hard time keeping a constant version of Andrew Leahey and the Homestead together in my time in Nashville. I've been lucky to have the same group of guys now for maybe like 5 years, which is insane to me. And so we had them on a couple songs off of Airwaves, but not on the majority of it.
Yeah.
And so I think, playing with, got Dmuchowski on guitar and like Dan Holmes on drums, playing all those live streams and being able to write songs that catered not only to, whatever my muse was, but also like their specific assets as a player. I think that helped us in the studio, because I could write a song and think, okay, like Jay would be great in a guitar part like this, and I could have a counteracting guitar part like this. I didn't have that ability before.
Yeah.
And then also, I think just, when you have a double album, you're allowed to go and explore the kind of like weird corners of your sound. With Airwaves, I just, I like that album, but I think it's almost like too focused on the fact that I wanted people to hear Tom Petty in our sound.
Sure.
And then on the album prior to that, Skyline and Central Time, I like that album too, but I think maybe I'm too focused on just trying to become like a name in the like a Nashville Americana community.
Right.
With this album, it was just like, who cares about any of this? Just, play the song as it wants to be played, whether it's a bluesy song like that, or whether it's some kind of weird piano ballad, which we hadn't really had on a previous album. And with 18 tracks, you can go to those weird places.
And the irony is that like 3/4 of this doubles album could be hits. Like that's the irony, because you were like so loose.
I love that, sure.
It's like, but like as an artist, Andrew, isn't it true that, because I've heard some legendary bands say there's a song that we love that we never released because there was almost like too much pressure on it to be a hit single. Like there was like too much gravitas attached to it, so it never saw the light of day. Yeah. Is that like a thing that like that you've grappled with in your career?
I would love to have a hit. I mean, it's just like the reality of us too. We're an independent band. Like the amount of like money it costs like to get a song on the radio nationally is huge. I used to worry a lot more about that, and I think with this album, only recently, I've come to the realization that if you have good music, that can be enough, and it's like finally enough.
Totally.
And maybe it took a pair of albums like this in order for it to be enough.
I love that, man. I want to talk about a few of the songs in the album, if that's all right.
Please.
I mean, let's start with this one that you just played, "Stay Awake."
Yeah.
Which actually sounds pretty different from the rest of the record, but I love it because I mean it's bluesy. It's like Don Henley. It's like Van Morrison.
Sure.
It's like just a lot of Laurel Canyon, beautiful stuff there at the end of the album. But also it's, there's a little bit of autobiography there, a little bit, right? Like there's some elements that the songwriting is very quirky and fun.
Yeah, it's kind of about my time. Well, I continue to be a music journalist.
Yeah.
It's kind of more under the radar now than it was, in the past. In the past, it was my whole life. Like right after college, I didn't really know how to launch a music career right out of college. I played in bands all throughout high school and college, but I went to a very high-achieving school. I had like roommates who were gonna go be like judges or paralegals, and I felt almost embarrassed about like my desire to keep playing music. So I was like, I guess I'm gonna go like take this like a job offer I have in New York to be a music journalist and work at music magazines. And I don't think they'll get mad. I worked at Spin magazine as an intern. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, but it was my goal going in there to just like climb the ladder as quickly as I could. I was like, I'm gonna get there as early as I can. Yeah. I'm gonna work late. Every volunteer possibility I'm gonna take, and I'm just gonna like soar. And I got there and realized like that, everybody had that idea. It's like the magazine industry in New York. It's crazy. It's cutthroat. And so years later, I wrote a song that's half true and half satirical. I call it. I have some really good tagline. Kind of like the nightmare aspect of the American dream. It's like, when all your hard work, kind of goes into a dark place. Yeah. So if you want to live the American dream, you've got to stay awake. I stayed awake a lot in New York.
Yeah. And
some insomniac years, those.
Yeah. And I think a theme of these albums is a little bit of like a very realistic view at the country. I think in many different interesting directions. Sure. And that's how I interpret it, but not like a hard like criticism, more like a loving criticism. And I think this one is a little bit like almost like being your true authentic self. Yeah. Like it's not even like a given anymore. Like you have to like pay for it. It's like you have to really like work like extracurricular to be yourself.
It's a very American mentality too. I think just to like work your butt into the ground. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I could cuss on here. We're live after all. Okay. Work your ass into the ground.
All right. I mean, Cut Like a Fire. Let's talk about Cut Like a Fire because it's the start. It's the first one of the album. It is the first one, but yeah. And it grabs you by the balls. It's awesome. It's just like a rock and roll, arena-sized song. It's really great.
Thanks, man.
And then when you go deeper, and it's it's about your family life and how that whole thing bubbled up in London. With Oasis influences basically all over it. Yeah. Man, talk to us about it's a great song, great opener.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I like big bombastic rock and roll, and I think we're, my band we often get characterized as Americana, and that's okay. I think what I draw from is more of a rock kind of thing. I like to play electric guitar more than acoustic guitar. I really enjoyed this though, and my father-in-law gave me this guitar as we were mentioning, so I appreciate that, Dave. Yeah, but I remember, so I've been to London a couple times. I went in 8th grade for the first time, and I'm kind of like betraying my age, but I think it was right when Oasis's like a third album, like Be Here Now, was coming out.
Sure.
And Oasis was just everywhere on like billboards. You know, they were like painted on like buildings. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
And like that music was so huge. I know like that album kind of gets a lot of flack, but I feel like the scope of the music matches the scope of their exposure at the time.
Yeah.
So Caught Like a Fire, like to me, it sounds like very Oasis-y. Kind of like the drums were almost like a military march kind of thing. We're using a bunch of like fuzz guitar. But lyrically, it's like just about me meeting my wife in New York.
Yeah.
Which is like right around the time where I began to work at that music industry job that I ultimately wrote about in Stay Awake.
Man, so great.
We haven't really played Caught Like a Fire live yet. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Bombastic. It's going to be phenomenal.
We'll see. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
You know, like, look, if it was up to me, there'll be, lasers for that one and, cannons with confetti and
I'm down with
just
lasers
really
and
dramatic.
Cannon confetti.
Maybe you coming out of like a harness like Bon Jovi did in the 80s, which is...
In the Lay Your Hands on Me video, yeah. If anyone out there can make that happen, we'll take a confetti cannon and a harness. And,
But yeah, this album is challenging. It's wonderful. It never lets you get too comfortable in a great way, like a good movie.
Thank you.
And Sign of the Times is kind of like a pivot, right? Because you're going through that like great Wembley-sized opener with like with your partner in mind and rock and roll, and then we're going to like a really rockin', but also like deep look at the country and some issues that we're having a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say that I'm a political person who doesn't make political music, but on Airwaves, there's a song called Queen and King of Smaller Things, which are with our friend John Latham, that kind of gets into that world a little bit. And Sign of the Times, I mean, we were wrapping the album up, and then everything happened, January 6th, the Capitol riots and whatnot, and that pissed me off. And, everybody was home, everybody had a lot of time to really ruminate on it, but, it was like a terrible thing to watch that on TV. So I wrote a song about it. I think it's the last song that we recorded on the album. It's my attempt to put that guy in his place. Yeah. He who shall not be named. Yeah. Billboards are all over Nashville right now, though.
But I did notice that. But you do it with like, and that's what I'm saying. Like you have such a beautiful, like profound way, almost more powerful than if like you're pointing a finger or just calling people's names. Like it's like thought provoking stuff, and that's what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it could be any leader too.
Yeah.
I hope people know. I'm proud to claim that it's about Trump. I'm not embarrassed about that, but it could be about any leader. And when I brought that song to the guys, like that song has like 3 different time signatures. It's pretty weird the way that it's kind of all cobbled together. And they didn't initially understand it. I think they got it lyrically, but they were like, wait, why does it go to this kind of like punky alt rock thing in the verse, and then it has this weird kind of swirling like psychedelic, almost like a Pink Floyd thing. It's kind of odd, but I think you glue it all together and it works.
Yeah, totally, man. Let me ask you one about American Static Volume 1, if that's all right.
Let's go back. Let's go back to October of 2021.
Yeah, Keep the Car Running. I love that song. And that was like an instant live smash hit, right? Like it was just...
That's just easy to play. And
that's your bread and butter, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the songs that could have also existed on Airwaves, lyrically as well, because it's just about enjoying music and you're in the car, you hear a song on the radio, and you like it to the point where you just want to remain in the car until it's over. Yeah. Airwaves itself is kind of a salute to the power of rock and roll radio. Yeah. And I guess that idea is powerful enough to me to explore over a couple albums. Right. But that's what Keep the Car Running is about. It's also, I guess, an Arcade Fire song. Sure. We didn't cover them, but it's the title of an Arcade Fire song. So yeah, we're battling them for Google hits. They're going to win for probably the rest of time, but that's okay.
Never say never. Man, you've been so good with your time. Let me ask you a little bit about just the concept of creating a double album.
Sure.
Was that a little intimidating? Because that's quite a it's a big undertaking, and as a music journalist and rock historian, that 50% of the times it doesn't stick.
Sure.
Yours did.
I appreciate you saying that.
100%, A+, but it was a risk.
Yeah, and I feel like we kind of cheated by putting them out as 2 different albums, calling it Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Right.
Again, I think I'm getting to the point where all of the all of the like scrambling that I used to do to try and like fit into a community or like fit into a role in Nashville or the national like music scene as a whole. I'm not really as worried about that anymore. Like, I'm comfortable, with whatever kind of like niche popularity Andrew Leahey and the Homestead can have. I'm comfortable like being a right-hand man in Elizabeth Cook's band. I'm happy with that. And I think as long as I make like a music that I believe in, that I know is good, like my own kind of like legacy stuff, which I didn't really hit until Aiwaves, I think. Like that's become enough like for me. So yeah, like a double album, I think any major label would tell me like that's not a good idea. But luckily I'm not on a major label, and I used to really bemoan that fact, but now I can celebrate it and say, we have 18 songs that we think are good. We can, release, like 9 of them now and then wait like 2 years and release another 9, but it's not going to feel as like a topical or timely to us. And imagine putting out Sign of the Times in like 2024. I mean, I'm sure it'll probably apply, unfortunately, to somebody, whether it's Putin or whoever, but, like that, it's like these songs were like songs of this moment. So we wanted to get them all
and
out.
it was a very heavy but beautiful moment. Yeah, you captured it all.
Thank you.
So I know you're gonna play some piano songs for us, but I just want to congratulate you again, Andrew, because this is.
Thank you, bud.
This is man, it got me chilly today. Just like really when it clicked that you put this out, these 2 albums, into the world, man. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate
man.
it.
Yeah, man.
Hey, piano time.
Let me ask you about Until There's Nothing But Air.
Yeah.
Because it's a really, really, really powerful song. Just tell us a little bit about it.
I wrote it, so I remember a number of years ago when I put out my debut album, I remember we were touring really, really heavily, and I felt like I missed like everybody's wedding. It was just like that age where everybody who was my age was getting married.
Yeah.
And now I'm at the age where a lot of people are splitting up, a lot of people are getting divorced. And so like that song, it's kind of, it's not a true narrative. Well, I guess it is, but it didn't happen to one person. It's just me kind of like thinking about a couple of friends who were splitting up, and kind of creating like a narrative where a guy is watching a woman that he cares for. It could be in a romantic way, it could be in a friend way.
Right.
And he's watching her get her heart broken, and he's like feeling for her.
Yeah. Wow, that's strong. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah, that's an interesting feeling because
So it's happened, and we just, we tried to create a sense of longing in the music. It's for any music geeks out there, there's a lot of major 7 chords. There's a lot of like slide guitar. It gets compared a lot to George Harrison. Like I think it's any slide guitar.
Yeah.
With us gets compared to George Harrison for whatever reason. But
love it.
Yeah, it's like a lovely recording that we can't claim complete credit for. I think like that's one of the that song is a place where John Estes really shines.
Love it.
They said your cigarette heart was burning down to the tips of the fingers of the man who's been calling you his. You used to set him alight. Now you're the wrong kind of ice. Some days I nearly start to chase you through the dark and the depth to feel you heat between my teeth and you smoke on my breath. Some days I just watch you burn. The chips fall where they were. We watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. Until there's nothing but air. We watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. They said your cigarette heart could leave a mark on a room, feeling every last part with a memory of you. I felt it burn in my eyes, flecking the red through the white. If I could hold it in my hand, hear the parts that go black, keep it just the way you were when you were shook from the pack. I'd keep my 10 fingers cups. Let you light yourself up. Instead we watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. Until there's nothing but air. We watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. Maybe if I could dream you another life, while you in deep from the noises at the gates outside, I'll give you that peace that the world can't hide. Clouds are moving like we wish we could. Until there's nothing but air. We watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. Yeah, we watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could. Until there's nothing but air. We watch the smoke clouds moving like we wish we could.
Hanging Heavy. Let me ask you about Hanging Heavy.
Hanging Heavy.
Yeah, great song.
Thank you. To me, it's kind of our like a mid-century, like a doo-wop pop rock song. I grew up going on long car rides with my parents if we were going to go to like the beach or something.
Like in Virginia?
Yeah, and we would always listen to the American Graffiti soundtrack, the Good Morning Vietnam soundtrack, the Big Chill soundtrack, the Stand By Me soundtrack, all these compilations of oldies songs. My parents weren't really like the hippest when it came to modern music, but they really liked good old stuff. And so just, you know, groups from back then like the Coasters and the Drifters, I love that music. It's really never left me. It's hard to make that influence work in the context of a pop rock band, but with Hangin' Heavy, we tried to do that. It's another piano song. I wrote it on the piano we were there.
Beautiful.
I still hear the sweep and the swing and the swoon of the sound of your feet as they will leave every room, echoing slowly. They're still going through my head each afternoon, and it keeps me hanging heavy on you. Do you make your bed every day? Do you smoke? Are you the kind that still does it inside when the night sends you home? Is there someone who always runs to you just to fix what you're calling broke? Do you leave him where the heavy ones go? And almost echoes fade, but not the sound she made. And almost colors run, but I recall everyone that ran from the dress you wore. stir. Blur the things and all we could be with the things that we really were. When it's late enough, I can't fake it enough. I can't take the weight of the world, but it keeps on hanging heavy. It keeps on hanging heavy. It keeps on hanging heavier. Yeah, I know most echoes fade, but not the sound she made. I know most colors run, but I recall everyone that ran from the dress you wore, out the bedroom to the door on that day where I stopped being in love. Squeaky chair.
And Andrew, like, okay, so the finale of this volume 2 is a big statement because it's a double album. Carry Your Weight is the chosen one to carry that mantle.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Carry Your Weight, why it's like the last one, and like the story of it, you know?
It's the last song because it ends in a fade out. And I like when an album like ends with kind of like a glorious, you know, like all hands on deck, jammy fade out. But in terms of writing that, it's another piano ballad. I don't think I put any piano songs on previous albums, but again, I was here in my house for all of COVID, and I'm a guitarist by trade and by history, and I prefer to play electric guitar, but there's a lot of luggage with that. You have to get your guitar out, your amp out, your pedals out, your chords, plug it all in. My cats hate it. They go upstairs.
Yeah.
I've got to clear it all out when I'm done, so my wife comes home and like doesn't like freak out because we have a small house here. So I found myself going to the piano more because it's already plugged in.
Ready to go.
It's not plugged in, but yeah. You just like you open it up and you play. So like a lot of American Static is piano songs. And Carry Your Weight, I was just, again, it's kind of like an imagined narrative. And I guess it's a guy who's like dealing with a bunch of his own like baggage, his own issues, and that weighs heavily on him. And he thinks that the way to, get past that is to like find a person, like a romantic interest, and he can carry her baggage instead. He thinks it's going to make it easier like on him because he can like forget about his own issues. And I'm not that person now. I'm happily married, but I'm sure I have been that person in the past.
Cool, man.
And I got to say too, it ends like the guitar work at the end isn't me. It's my buddy Jay just kicking ass on some guitar.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm on piano for that one.
Right on. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
If you feel there's no room for you here, won't you let me show you're enough? Your broken heart's not too much to pack up or too heavy. 'Cause I've been ready to carry a weight apart from my home. The peak of summertime bleaches yellow lines in your hair, makes the simple things dance along the brink of being too beautiful to bear. Sometimes I keep it together, sometimes I come apart. I can break and light the leather on a luckier man's arm. I've seen that's the way you've been, the brink of diminishing. He thinks you're listening against his side as the barroom fills to see your face stand still. The weight of the world on your smile. 'Cause who paid the bill but not attention is drawn to every blinking light, and gravity will get the best of him. 4 to 5 drinks in every night. So if it's late and no one's taking you home, won't you let me? And if you need to make the whole damn world bleed, come and wreck me. 'Cause I've been ready to carry a weight apart from my own. Crack in the hourglass, the time that's ours just passes out the sight. And time's no fool for you, no kind of mule for you. But what else can I do for you, acolyte? Now you wasted every minute for 1 second that feels alright. It's a game that traps you in it, and a shame on every side. Still it reels me in, the dealer deals me in. I need to feel what it's like to win all I'm allowed. Watch my presence felt the best by someone else. To prove these cards I've been dealt can beat the house. But the hand you've been holding, it's not the kind that you should raise. And a hand bound for 40 won't shoulder the weight. So if you fear there's no room for you here, won't you let me? I show you're enough. Your broken heart's not too much to pack up or too heavy. 'Cause